maybe people didn't know who Byron was when he first arrived, but the opera was the place where you made yourself known. The whole of society would be here on a regular basis, and it only took one person to say, oh, questo è Lord Byron, molto difficile, no. And they'd have all done that, and then they'd have all known about the scandal, the incest, everything. And the point was, though, they weren't so easily shocked by things. They let people, you know, kind of do what they liked. And he remarks himself that he was introduced to a man who someone said, oh, this man prefers men. And the only reaction from society was, oh, what a shame for the women. And so I think he must have known as soon as he got to Milan this was kind of a great country for him to be in.
For the cream of Italian society, Byron's scandalous reputation wasn't the handicap it had been in England. They all wanted him, and Byron lapped it up, charming the Donatella Versaces of his day.
What I can say is he wasn't a minimalist at all.
No, not at all.
It was extraordinary. Also, the way he looked physically, it was no handsome, according to what we consider handsome today. No. But then, it was considered very handsome.
You know, when you think that a lot of people had smallpox, a lot of people didn't have teeth, a lot of people had funny bones, so good-looking then was someone who had decent skin and some teeth already. And so our standards have become so high,
very,
in a way.
Very high.
It's quite...
We have everything perfect. Can you imagine at that time already thinking about dieting and the perfect silhouette body?
Well, that's a funny thing, because sometimes when you read things, it's like reading about things today. He loved, for example, some of his best friends were older women, but they did things like enemas and stuff like that. But anyway, that's another story. Hi, everyone. Hello. Hi. Very well, how are you?
Italy really was the great escape for Byron.
The dinner is served.
These flamboyant, tolerant and operatic people allowed him to be himself. And he left his mark here. Donatella and her daughter Allegra and their friends from the world of fashion are all familiar with his reputation.
By the time it comes here, it's just an interesting parallel in a way, because here, in a way, is one of the centres of image making, and you're all involved in the making of people's images. And he was so ahead of his time for that kind of thing, about building image and being a star. Everything he did was star-like. You know how stars are really only friends with their hairdressers?
Yes.
Makeup
artists and hairdressers. That's
no, because you know in the end who's the important person around you. Yeah. And he was like that. He had this circus group of a gondolier and you know his valet, and they
These were his
He just had his entourage, and he was so like the first star.
You know, like because he had all these relationships, how maybe perhaps we thought it's because in the end he didn't really love himself, so he was looking for other people to love him.
But that's another thing, that he's very ahead of his time, because this is a time before Freud. No one would understand that if you said to someone in 1816, do you hate yourself? Yeah. They'd just think it was very peculiar. And that's another very star-like thing. I think to be a star, you have to have equal dose of hating yourself and loving the idea of yourself.
Yes.
And that's why stars mostly today are so fucked up. Don't you think, in a way?
I love myself.
You love, yes.
How they were the women with whom he was relating?
The first one that really got him into trouble was this woman called Lady Caroline Lamb.
Yeah.
She was like a dangerous woman, because once he rejected her, she went mad. And she had this fabulous scene once where she went to a party and she took a champagne glass and she cut her wrists, and the party said, OK, what do you want me to do now?
Oh, that's so glamorous.
Fantastic. But in those days, in England, it was like the biggest. Everyone just stopped dead in their tracks.
If Lord Byron was alive today, you think you go to a psychiatrist in analysis, he'll be...
I'm not sure, because I think the thing about him also, he didn't care really what anyone else thought about him. And I think the idea of sitting in some psychiatrist's office and the psychiatrist saying, did your mother, you know, I don't know what they say, psychiatrists, I think he'd have got cross with the psychiatrist. I think psychiatrists are useless, though.
Oh.
They never do anything, they just sit and listen. Anyway, if you're famous, doing interviews is just like... it's like being a psychiatrist, just say what you want. And then after the interviews, don't you find sometimes you do an interview thinking, oh my God, I really learned something about myself doing that. And
In Milan, Byron was carnally restrained, But like some great sexual athlete, he was merely pacing himself for his next city, Venice, where he would put in the groundwork for his next great poem, Don Juan, not least by seducing over 200 women. Byron had arrived in the city he was made for, Venice. In this place of masked balls and clandestine trysts in gondolas, Byron not only let his loins run wild, but also his creative genius. His stay in Venice was to inspire another epic poetic work, the scandalous masterpiece, Don Juan. As Byron had his guide, gondolier and possible lover Tito, I have my good friend Robin and her little pink boat.
Can I bring you on board?
Of course. You can bring anything you like.
I imagine Byron stalking in his gondola. He said everybody, rich, poor, young, old, they all loved sex in Venice when he was here. So there must have been like this...
And you think it's different now?
Is it the same now?
No, it's all anybody's interested in here.
Really, sex?
Really, yeah. They like other things. They like going out on the boat. They like their food. They love drinking.
Right.
They love drinking. They're the only Italians that drink, and they drink a lot.
And Byron drank quite a lot while he was here too.
As Robin says, everyone watches each other here. It's a sport. It always has been. Soon Byron became a recognizable presence, lurking in the misty alleyways.
Byron in the mist, yes, of course. Eyes glowing with sexual desire, cock dripping with gonorrhea, looking for the next moment of redemption through the misty canals, tendrils of smoky mist.
And Tito is there, always
and
taking care of him.
Singing,
And I think that Byron wanted to get away from all the attention he was getting in England, which was really negative.
And getting a lot of good attention
but
here.
He also didn't want to be ignored, because the thing is that it's very easy to go from one extreme to the other, from the sense of being hounded to the sense of disappearing, and one is worse than the other.
No, he really found his picture frame here. I mean, he just, like, his image, I think, was completed in a way by Venice. I remember actually sitting on the Lido a couple of summers ago with a very grand kind of group and mentioning your name. And one woman said, "Oh, yes, my husband has been having an affair with her for a long time. Please tell her to come." And I thought, this is the ultimate in chic. No names mentioned.
No names mentioned, okay. Well, not many people work here.
Oh, yes, actually. Robin. Yes, my husband has been having an affair with her for 2 years, I think. Isn't that so, darling? Oh, yes, my dear, of course. We all know Robin, right? Everyone's all, see? I mean, in Byron's time, he said everybody enjoyed the pursuit of sex here. And I guess that hasn't changed, really.
Not really, no. Not as far as I've noticed.
For Byron, Venice was a cheap place to live. He could and did have anything he wanted, from an odd menagerie of servants to the wife of his first landlord. But this wasn't just a voyage of excess, it was an exercise in freedom. And perhaps it was one way for him to vent his anger against what he called the cant political, cant poetical, and cant moral of the English and European worlds. And as ever, his life's experience was the raw material for his poetry, with his hero Don Juan fighting and shagging his way across the globe, apparently leaving his female conquests in ecstasy.
She dreamed of being alone on the seashore, chained to a rock she knew not how, but stir she could not from the spot. And the loud roar grew, and each wave rose roughly, threatening her. And o'er her upper lip they seemed to pour until she sobbed for breath. The dream changed, and in a cave she stood. Walls were hung with marble icicles. Those are pubes, I expect. She's now inside her own pussy.